My husband was behind me and he held me tight. I could see fear in his eyes. I had never seen him so afraid.
Kada Hotic, Hasan Nuhanovic and thousands of others never saw their loved ones again.
It is very difficult to face the truth, but any truth is better than uncertainty. For example, I still don't know the fate of my son. He was a handsome boy. If he's dead, I hope he was killed by a bullet, that he died quickly. As a mother, can you imagine how that feels?
Srembrenica fell on July 11th, 1995. Since then, on the 11th day of each month, the women of Srebrenica have held a silent vigil in Tuzla. They represent just a handful of the scores of orphans and widows left in the wake of the killings. More than 7,000 Srebrenica victims remain missing, their fate unknown, their graves still hidden in the Bosnian countryside. For anxious relatives, hope for closure rests with the UN exhumation team. And today, a new mass grave lies nearer than any of them can imagine.
Sierra base, India Charlie 2.
After a 2-hour commute through Serb territory, investigator Dean Manning and the rest of the UN exhumation team near the Zelani Adar mass grave.
India Charlie 2, maybe 5-10 minutes.
India Charlie 2, 0 base, stop down.
There's a mass grave next to us now, and you cannot tell that. It's a mass of bush and trees. You wouldn't be able to find them unless you had the aerial image or a witness to take you there, or you were lucky. This is ICTY security officer waving at the camera, and then S4 security as well.
Stabilisation Force troops and UN policemen guard each exhumation site, day and night. Serb resentment of the war crimes investigation runs deep here. Each morning before the tarps come off, the pit is checked for freshly planted booby traps. Across the site, the smell of decomposition hangs in the air.
The images can portray a lot, but they cannot portray exactly that. The smell coming to you 1 week after, nobody's enjoying that. Sticking your hands in some mucky thing or getting full of that mud that is a combination of mud and people's remains. The head is completely smashed there. Here the guy is facing down, the left arm sort of extended and then flexed like this.
By week 2, they have unearthed what they think to be 170 individual victims and nearly 600 pieces of evidence.
From a motor vehicle.
Many remains contain clues linking them to Srebrenica and the Dutch UN base. From the beginning, they discovered chunks of concrete in the pit.
It's just a unique piece of material. And again, we'll have a scientific examination of the paint and the concrete.
More than any other evidence, these cryptic artefacts will lead Dean Manning to the execution site and to the Serb unit closest to it when the killings took place. This is the Krivitsa warehouse. Investigators were first tipped off to its presence by American U-2 images secretly taken during the crisis. Dean believes that the concrete in Zalani Yadar once belonged to this structure, and that the dead there were killed inside of it. In July of 1995, the road running past the warehouse was lined with Serb soldiers hunting down Muslim men as they fled west.
You see a Serb soldier sitting here on the side of the road with his weapon pointed out towards the hills. You see groups of men being marched across the road and then held on this meadow, on Sandichi Meadow. We have aerial images provided by the US government which shows Sandichi Meadow, which is just here, with a crowd of men on it. You can see a square of men.
This American intelligence photo clearly depicts several hundred Muslim captives gathered on a field not far from the Krivitsa warehouse. Although the Serbs and Muslims below did not know it, American U-2 spy planes were capturing the tragedy on film, images they would later provide to UN investigators. At an abandoned house across the road, a Serb TV crew also recorded the scene.
This is the house that you see, and if you come through here, imagine this area in 95. This is the escape route for the Muslim column. They're following actually that power line there. They don't know the area, so they say follow that power line, it will take you to Tuzla. You've got men walking through the crest of the hills there. They're being shelled and attacked. And they're coming down to give themselves up. They're being called down to give themselves up. Come down from the hills, give yourself up. The soldiers here on the road are dressed as UN, they have UN equipment on. And probably on this path, but certainly up this way, they were brought and walking up towards this house here. Now, in the video, you see a guy carried on a stretcher. You see a young man taking his camouflage shirt off, being told to take that off. You see a young boy, very young boy, walking through here. This is all happening here. You also see a man interviewed, and you can see the terror on his face, and he's asked, why are you afraid? What do you think will happen? And he looks at the camera, and you can just see the fear, and he says, why shouldn't I be scared? Why wouldn't I be scared? That group of men and boys are taken around the house and eventually over to Sandichi Meadow, which is directly opposite this house.
As they are held on the meadow, buses packed with their wives and daughters, Kada Hotic among them, drive by.
I quickly looked around, fearing I would see someone I knew. My son, my brother, my neighbor.
Just down the road, U-2 photos show other buses that have just unloaded other Muslims into the Krivitsa warehouse. By late afternoon, more than 1,000 men and boys have been crammed inside.
The warehouse was already crowded with people. The burst of gunfire began. They were laughing and talking in front of the warehouse.
This man is a UN war crimes witness and one of 2 surviving victims of the Krivitsa warehouse massacre.
The shots came through the windows and doors. We hardly knew where it was coming from. Grenades were thrown in. We also heard the rocket launcher firing into the warehouse. The people inside the warehouse began to cry and ask for help. Help! Help! Who are they seeking help from? Those who opened fire?